We're keeping this fucking train rolling. Miyamafa, we gotta keep going. I honestly don't know what day of Miyamafa this will be because this is getting recorded a little bit out of order. This is being recorded earlier than you're probably seeing it. Hopefully it's coming out after a big Vinland Saga video. But I haven't wrote that video yet, so fuck me. We're in stressful times here, Miyamafa. Let me check the Audacity levels. We seem to be going fine. So someone recommended this in the comments. I was like, oh yeah. I think when I checked, when I did the other ones, when I did the Attack on Titan tier list and the Berserk character tier list, I don't think there was a Vinland Saga one out yet, but here we go. The anime must have been useful for something, but we'll avoid talking about that. We're just talking about characters here today. This is fucking probably the best one I've seen. Look at how they properly got fucking headshots for all of these fuckers. There's some people missing. This is not the most eclectic one. I also have to warn that I reread recently. I'm sure if anyone is familiar with my Vinland Saga content would know. I've recently reread the first two arcs of Vinland Saga, but I've stopped at chapter 99 and I have to get back to it eventually. But me and Mafava is stressful as fuck, and we ain't got time to just sit around and read. Basically Gudrid on, I don't really remember that much about. So my opinions will be far more informed on people from the prologue and the farm arc. And the other ones I'll just sort of be from vaguely what I remember and what's happening in the recent chapters with the last two boys here. I've also rearranged them into sort of an order that we can go down to make the video a bit more productive. So number one, we're going to start off with our boy here, Thorfinn. I've sort of arranged him in the family. The mother's not here, not much of a character, so... if anyone, Thorfinn's probably S tier, because I'm going to rank these in terms of Vinland Saga, not in terms of characters overall. I don't know. Vinland Saga's biggest strength, I'd say, is its characters. But I don't know. And it's because that's the same for Berserk, right? And obviously, we've gone over, I don't think Vinland Saga and Berserk should be compared, but this is a way they should be compared, is they are seinen anime that are, it's all about the characters in both of them. Everything else is irrelevant, I guess, besides artwork and themes, obviously. Those are probably the three cornerstones of both theories. So the characters are the driving force and what I would consider to be the best thing about them both. But I don't know if Thorfinn is an S tier. In general, if we were comparing him to Berserk characters, I don't think Thorfinn would be S tier, he'd be A tier. But in terms of just Vinland Saga, the thing is, young Thorfinn is obviously an idiot, but he's way cooler. Like, he's more fun and more interesting to watch than contemporary Thorfinn. Contemporary Thorfinn is a little boring and he feels like Goku. He sort of like plays off the characters around him. He's a bit goofy, he's very stoic, and he's the strongest boy. He'll fuck anyone up. And so it's sort of the characters around him that make him interesting at all now. Like, how is he going to deal with this Gudrid relationship situation? How does he deal with Floki? Like, when he came face to face, from what I remember with Floki, and he has like that rage moment, I remember that being very, very fucking cool. I don't know, it seeps through. But obviously I haven't reread that, so there could be like idiosyncratic fucking nuances there that I'm just not familiar with because I've only read it once, and that was about a year ago. Because of that Baltic Sea War. We'll put him in S tier. He's a bit boring now. That's all I'll say. Are we done with Thorfinn? I guess. Ylva is not much of a character. She has so much potential at the beginning of the series. I'm gonna put her in C tier. She's really hot. That is something to go on at least. But I don't know. She married that Ari dude, and that Ari dude is the worst fucking character. He's so fucking stereotypically generic and bad and annoying, and I hate him. So that can only go so far. And like whenever like Thorfinn reunites with her and they do the gimmick where she doesn't recognize him and tells him to piss off or whatever, it's just a bit So potential, but that's not the way that the manga decided to go down. We didn't decide to focus on Ylva at all. Thor's is more of an idea, a thematic idea, than a character. So he's quite boring, not much to say about Thor's. He's more of an idea than a character. I'd probably put him in B tier. I don't really care that he's like a badass or whatever. Fuck that shit, I don't care. Askeladd is the best character in Vinland Saga. It's undeniable. You probably heard me talk about that yesterday, hopefully, but I haven't written that video yet, so I could be speculating. I could scrap that video. That video could take too long to get out, and maybe you haven't seen it yet, so fuck me if I'm future-proofing this. But Askeladd is the best character in Vinland Saga. His goofiness in the anime, I hate. I love manipulative, cunning Askeladd, the Askeladd that talks about Rome, and the Askeladd that talks about his fucking past, and the one that schemes, the one that kills King fucking Swain over here immediately on the spot, knowing that he has to protect Wales. That's the Askeladd I love. He's the best character. The fucking plot twist that he hates the Danes is so fucking great. Where it's like him and Thorfinn are supposed to be diametrically opposed and they're supposed to hate each other, when clearly he treats him like a son, and clearly he cares about Thorfinn, and eventually Thorfinn grows to care about him, but that happens after he dies. Obviously spoilers for fucking Vinland Saga. If you're here, you're a moron. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much to say about Askeladd. He's only around for that first arc. He gets killed off really quick, and it fucking sucks, but it's obviously, it only emphasizes how great his character is. It's just so fucking great. That twist is so good when he says, "I fucking hate the Danes" to all of his men, and says he hopes they die. And the scene with him and Thorfinn where they talk about Rome, when they both are like disgusted by the men, so they leave. And then when he sort of has the heart-to-heart with Bjorn, and him and Canute's like fucking non-verbal communication in those last few chapters is so great. It's some good fucking shit. Him and Thorkell playing off each other is fun. He'll fuck you up. He's great. Askeladd is the best character in Vinland Saga. Bjorn, he's probably a B tier, probably less than Thor's, I guess. His only interesting feature is that Askeladd considers him his only friend, sort of, and he like fights for Askeladd even to the end, and then he fights Askeladd to die in the end. Bjorn becomes interesting at the tail end of his fucking lifespan in the series. He's pretty good, but nothing to write home about. Thorkell is S tier. He's really fucking cool. His sort of social awkwardness brings out the best in his character. I'd say he's better than... I don't know. If Thorfinn and him were to ever fight again, I'd probably root for Thorfinn, so I'd put Thorkell here. He's just great. The way that he's an enigma in the world. He's written so. He's supposed to highlight the absurdity of the world through his absurd actions himself. Obviously, him loving war is like a major contradiction to fucking Thorfinn and Thor's, and that's obviously intentional. It just highlights the different sides of the world and explores all sorts of themes, and it's really fucking cool. And the fact that he fights against the Danes because he finds it more interesting to fight for the losing side because it's more fun, and then he decides to follow Canute because it'd be fun. And then he gets pissy at Canute when there's no war around, and then he meets Thorfinn again, he wants to fight him, all that good shit. He's just fun. He's also Goku-like, but more Kid Goku-like, more Luffy-like. I know I've made that comparison before, that Luffy is basically just Kid Goku, in the very limited amount of One Piece that I've seen, or read, rather. Where they don't understand the social fabric, and so the genius of their characters is how characters around them react to them doing weird shit that they think is completely normal. And it's sort of supposed to highlight how weird the norms of the society are. So yeah, Thorkell does that with power, and how relative, obviously, he thinks it is because he's a wrecking force, and even though England's fucked, he wants to fight for them because he doesn't value the same things that everyone else values. Canute is obviously another S tier character. I sort of front-loaded this with all the S tier characters I'm starting to realize now, and all the most interesting characters. I don't know, I'd probably put Canute above Thorkell. Canute and Thorfinn are obviously two sides of the same coins. They're the main rivals, the main protagonists of our story. They have two very different approaches. They reconcile, obviously, on the beach at the farm, where Canute actually grows to respect Thorfinn because they're fighting for the same thing. His rejection of God, and the fact that he wants to not betray him, but go against God, and create a paradise on Earth instead of the supposed paradise in the afterlife. It's a very interesting concept for a fucking sort of antagonist, sort of protagonist. He blurs the line. He does terrible things, obviously, to grab power that is explained away as being for the greater good, and that is obviously like Griffith. But we've already been over the Griffith-Canute comparisons and how they successfully subvert them. So yeah, Canute's great. I can't really say much about what he does after. What does he do after the farm? See, I really need to fucking finish this mighty reread of Vinland Saga. I don't remember at all anything he does. I know he has like a meeting with Thorkell, where he like has to try and reel him in, but Thorkell like runs away and goes to the Jomsvikings. I think that's what happens, because there's like the power struggle. That's what starts the Baltic Sea War. Fuck. What does Canute do after that? I don't know. Everything up to that gets him in the S tier. He's great. Gardner? I know everything about him. These Vinland Saga names, this is the easiest one here, but some of them are fucking Nordic and strange. But our boy here, he looks after Canute. I'd say he's B tier. When he dies, you're like, oh shit. You sort of like, yeah, finally. Because he is a bit of an annoying prick. He obviously knows, Askeladd knows what he's doing, and the audience understands that, but he serves there to undermine that sort of. And when Askeladd has him killed off, it sort of highlights the ruthlessness of Askeladd and how he'll scheme. But then Gardner stays true to who he is, and he's like Christian and stuff, which is interesting, especially because he's Danish, and he loves Canute like a son. Obviously, he's looked after him, he's pampered him, which is for the greater good, obviously. Eventually, after Gardner dies, Canute obviously comes out of his shell more, and stops being, well, massively comes out of his shell and becomes this Canute rather than the timid little boy. But Gardner, Gardner's best moment is when he fucking dies, and he like accepts that he's dying and leaves all the emotion out of it and becomes very pragmatic about what Askeladd has to do, and he tells Askeladd in his dying breaths about the situation with Canute and his brother and the power struggle and how they have to take out the king if they want to survive it all. Some good times. That's definitely his best moment. I don't think his brother's on this list. I think they kill his brother, right? Askeladd? Maybe not. No, Askeladd doesn't. They find out he's like spying on them though, but I think he's still around. I don't remember. Not very relevant. And then we got the priest. The priest is more of an idea than a character as well. He serves as thematic to discuss what love is and stuff like that. Yeah, he's a great addition. He's a great side character for us to focus on every once in a while, and his sort of realization and stuff. And there's also the cool moment where he shaves and he's like 21 or whatever, when everyone thought he was like 50. That's an interesting moment. And he's a drunk, which is endearing to the masses being a drunk. So yeah, he's cool. We haven't seen him since the prologue, I don't think, unless he makes a cameo in some later chapter that I'm unaware of. And I'm sure he would be enlightened by Thorfinn if he met him today. Doesn't Thorfinn, like, tell his story to this dude about Thor's? He says something and he, like, realizes, the priest, like, hears it and realizes, oh yeah, it's pretty enlightening or whatever, when he says, like, his dad once told him that a true warrior needs no sword or something. I reasonably recall that happening. I don't know if I'm making shit up now. The king, he'll also go on B tier. He's an interesting antagonist for the little time he's here. Really fucking ugly, you know what I mean? Yeah, he serves as a great antagonist. He's a fucking legendary schemer. Finds out about Askeladd with the help of Floki, and then Askeladd outplays him, and he ends up fucking dead. His best moment is when he gets decapitated, because that's probably the best moment in Vinland Saga. Fuck, that's a hell of a final fucking few chapters of an arc. Jesus Christ. What a fucking boy this Askeladd is. And King Sweyn is pretty fucking cool too, but he goes in B tier. Floki probably also goes in B tier, same with his grandson. Floki obviously is supposed to be the biggest of the big bads. He killed Thors, we're supposed to hate him. But then the author decides that we're going to humanize him, because that's the point of Vinland Saga. We got to forgive Floki, so we give him a lovable grandson. And the grandson is got all sort of complexity about him as well. He realizes that everyone's fighting over him, and everyone on Floki's side is fighting on behalf of him on something he doesn't even really want. He just wants to go fishing with his grandpa, right? Floki's not his father. He might be his granduncle or his uncle or something. I think it's his grandfather. So yeah, and he wants to consolidate power for his grandson. I think his grandfather. But obviously this is stuff I haven't read in a while. So yeah. But he becomes an endeared character. Thorfinn forgives him. Or he doesn't really, he just doesn't see him again, and he decides to let him go, and he doesn't know what he'd do if he saw him again. He gets away from Thorkell. Everything seems to be going all right for Floki and his grandson, and in the end you're rooting for them to just go fishing or do whatever the fuck they want. Einar, if that's even how you say his name, is probably our first A-tier character. I really don't remember him doing anything after the farm. I know he talks to Hild in that situation, and obviously he had practical use in the Baltic Sea War, but it's he sort of suffers from the same thing Thorfinn does. He sort of becomes boring. I don't know, he's been a bit boring, a bit bland from the beginning, but his relationship with Arnheid and fucking Ketil is pretty great. So that makes him interesting and really good in the farm arc. In the farm arc he would probably be S tier. But overall, he sort of slips a bit, and I don't know, he's become a bit of a background character. He's Thorfinn's first friend. He has very much... He's only significant in his relation to other characters. But he's good, and he's entertaining at the job, and he's supposed to act as an audience surrogate of what the average person would do in a situation like this. Because Thorfinn, obviously, is a very exceptional person that we're supposed to admire, just like Einar does, and we're supposed to seek this world through the eyes of him, more so than anyone else. Arnheid is absolutely an S tier character. I'd say she's probably the second best character in Vinland Saga. Her fucking story is great. Everything about her is great. The fact that there's just so much there. Her relationship with her husband, who isn't on this list actually, which is interesting. And then her relationship with Ketil, where she wants to reenact the past with Ketil and try and have a stable family with him. And she also has a relationship with Ketil's wife, which is very interesting. And she can tell that they're fucking and is very jealous of fucking Arnie, so she makes her life a living hell. And then obviously her relationship with Einar, that's more pure. And but nothing ever happens. I was so sure she was gonna survive, and then when she died, it's ugh, that's a big oof right there. It's a fucking great moment. She gets beaten to death by fucking Ketil of all people. Oh, and it's so great. It's just fucking poetry, this shit. It rhymes. Yeah, and then the grave that they make, and then Einar and Thorfinn's proclamation with her gravestone in the background of the image. And then as they leave in the boat, the shot shows the rock, and it's just fuck me. Jesus Christ. What a character, what an impact on the story. Just fucking great shit. If they ever get to Vinland Saga, they'll probably put a plaque to her or something. It'll be cool. It'll be I remember her, and everyone will be she was fucking great. I remember her. Now, is Ketil S or A tier? It's a very interesting story. Not that fun to watch on screen necessarily. Goofy and likable to begin with. He seems like a very reasonable slave owner, and he remains a very reasonable slave owner, but he lets his emotions get the best of him, and he hates war and is living on a false man's fucking narrative. It's a very complex character. I don't know, I just don't like watching him as much. I'd probably put him ahead of Einar in how good they are, not in how likable though. So do we move this back? I don't know. I probably wouldn't put him in S tier. He can stay in A tier. His son Thorgil, however, the other son isn't here on this list either. He would probably be A tier since he gets the message. Thorgil is so fucking cool. He's saying he's cool is sort of what do you call it? is sort of the antithesis of the entire point of Vinland Saga. He's not supposed to be cool. We're not supposed to think he's cool. We're supposed to think he's cruel and evil and stuff. But he comes so close to killing Canute, and that chapter is so fucking great. It's so awesome because he comes so close. He really fucking does, and it's like, this man is a fucking monster, and it's like, Jesus Christ. It's just such a great chapter. This goes back to me wanting Eren to die. Fuck. Attack on Titan manga spoilers. Eren isn't dead. But there's a tease with a certain character named Gabby, who we love and adore on this channel, where I said I wished that he had actually died there, because I would love for one time for a story to completely upend itself. And I think this is what everyone loves about Game of Thrones originally, is that they kill Ned Stark off, but it's a bit more set up for Ned Stark to die than it would have been for Canute to die in this moment, or for Eren to have died in chapter 119, where it's sort of just like all this build-up in anticipation makes it so that this character cannot die in this situation. Canute could not have died then, but it's almost like one time I just want a character like that to die. Imagine if Thorgil had gotten to fucking Canute then, and they had won the battle on the farm, and everything returned to normal. How insane that would be. From a narrative standpoint, it would have been bad, but almost for the surprise factor and the unpredictability and the almost where do we go now, and if that had a plan behind it, it'd be so interesting to see that happen. But it didn't, and it probably never will. It also goes back to wrestling with Suzuki and Okada at Royal Quest, where it doesn't really make sense for Suzuki to win. He's 51, Okada is the head of the company, and he's got a Sonata match that we all know is coming and we're all dreading, and it's just like undercut. We know Suzuki won't win, but when he sets up for the fucking pile driver and he nearly motions to hit it, the fucking crowd, I went insane, the crowd at Royal Quest went insane, because they believed for a second there, for a brief second, for a brief page, I thought Canute was dead, and that was enough, and that feeling in that moment was enough to get Thorgil into an S tier fucking character. So great. Speaking of great, Snake also goes in S tier. Fuck, not D tier, get the fuck up there. Snake is so fucking cool. He's where do we begin with this man? Where does he go? I don't know, we're moving him up here, fuck it. Obviously he's got the fucking rugged, long black hair look. It's great. His relationship with the old man, who's also not on this list, is great. And the fact that he reads him the Bible or whatever, and the fact that he's actually an honorable thief. Or is he even a thief? No, they call him thieves. He's like an honorable bodyguard where all of his men are just there for the paycheck and that they never have to actually do work. But when it comes to fucking nut-cutting time, he stays around and fights against the Joms Vikings and holds his own, obviously, because he's a seasoned warrior when the rest of them are not. And decides to defend the farm to the death because they have done so much for him. It's a great moment. Because he's actually believed this. He's actually like lawful good, or if I'm even using those stupid fucking terms right, where he's like, this is how things run. Like everything else in Vinland Saga is like, this is how things are supposed to run, but nothing actually works this way. Like, the slaves are not allowed to earn their freedom like Ketil says that the structure of the farm should be, because the farm hands constantly fuck them over and everyone else is against them and they're generally disliked. So even if Ketil has fucking good intentions, it's not going to go that way because people are corruptible. And it's the same with the bodyguards, right? In theory, if an army is to come, we pay them, so even if they're massively outnumbered, they'd still fight because we've given them so much to do so little. And now when it comes to nut-cutting time, they should stick around and fight. That's how, in theory, the contract would work. But in reality, the bodyguards are corruptible and they're probably going to run away because they don't want to die. And they'd rather break a contract than die. Whereas Snake actually represents like order and he does stick around. And usually I hate like the orderly characters and love the more chaotic ones. And that's why Askeladd's up here. But still, the fact that he's like honor bound in a series where honor does not exist at all, where everyone's just out for themselves, is pretty fucking awesome. The fact that he's the exception to the rule makes him by proxy interesting, when in a story, like in a traditional like samurai story, obviously everyone would be like him. He's also very, like, rugged and stuff, and he's got some personality, our boy Snake. He's pretty great. Leif, where do we put Leif? Leif is, I'd put him at the head of B tier. I thought about A tier. Again, with Leif, not very interesting. A bit boring to watch. Not much personality, but it's how he plays off the variety of other characters and off his adopted son, the other Thorfinn, and everyone else is what makes him interesting. He's like kooky and lovable at the very beginning. That's probably when he has the most personality. But ever since Thorfinn runs away, he's like a deeply regretful old man who just wants to find our boy Thorfinn, but can't. So yeah, he's a lovable bloke because of the way, even if he doesn't have much personality. This dude, I just remember being annoying as fuck. Other Thorfinn, we'll put him down in C tier. I don't remember much all about him. I know he's like whiny and cowardly, and Thorfinn has like a speech with him because Garm like kidnaps everybody and he just lets him do it, and Thorfinn gets back and like scolds him or something, or they have a talk where he admits like, I'm not brave like you, other Thorfinn, and all that stuff. So that's basically all I remember. A bit annoying. The baby, I remember very little about the baby. I'm pretty sure I remember a piss and gag where he like pisses on Thorfinn's face or something. But they find him after like a village has been raided, and this is basically an impractical way to make Thorfinn go through a fatherly arc without having to have a wife. So they don't have to write a relationship, but they can give Thorfinn the responsibilities of being a father to teach him certain things. So yeah, it's a pretty clever writing trick. Yeah, I don't know. The baby's not a character though, so I don't know. Put him in C tier for now, whatever. See, this is where we get to the risky part. I can rate these three because I've read about them very recently. But with Gudrid, I don't remember too much about her. I definitely remember her having personality and stuff, so I'll put her in B tier. But I think she could probably go further because I have very vague memories of anything that she's like. I think her explaining that she does have feelings for Thorfinn, and spoiler alert, if you've ever read a history book, it will spoil that her and Thorfinn do end up getting together eventually. So I was ruined on that, but her admitting that, I remember that being a cool moment, but I just don't remember enough. Because she was supposed to marry Sigurd, right? And they have a relationship and she like runs away. When she was first introduced, I thought she was like 12 years old, but it turns out she's like 20. So I had a very different impression of her, and then when they're like, oh, she's getting married, and she talked about being married before, I was like, did she get married when she was 10? And they reveal that she's 20, and it's sort of like I had like the wrong idea of who this character was in my head. So I think I definitely need to reread it with this knowledge beforehand and think about how she is as a character. So Gudrid is a big question mark, but I'll put her in B. Hilde, I definitely have problems with Hilde. She's very predictable. Everyone knows that she's going to forgive for Thorfinn eventually. It's just sort of a very predictable character arc. Her backstory is probably the best thing about her. I don't know, I'll put her at the head of C tier, and she looks cool, but like, it's just sort of like, can we get the fucking ball rolling here? We all know how this ends. This is not a clever character to introduce to the story. It's basically just to get Thorfinn a guts traveling party, let's be honest. He needs a group of people, a group of characters, and Hilde becomes one, and it's very easy to write dynamic. Someone who hates Thorfinn that grows to love him over the period of time because he's such a great bloke, and she also has this personal vendetta, so when she forgives him, it'll be proof to the audience that you can forgive anyone for anything, and that pacifism is the way, the truth, and the light. You know what I mean? Garm, I remember the ending, and he's really fucking cool, so I'll put him in A tier, but I don't know if I remember enough about him, or if he has enough substance to be in S tier. Probably put him in front of Ketil. I remember the chapter with his backstory, and it had that amazing page of art. That's the first thing I think of, and his fight with Thorkell, where they power scale and they're equal. And then he fights Thorfinn, and Thorfinn beats him. He's chaotic evil. Again, if we go back to that fucking structure, he's like he's basically chaos, and it's like an obstacle that Thorfinn has to overcome, someone that just wants to fight with real stakes and stuff. But Thorkell, and it's interesting that he considers Thorfinn a friend and everything, like we've always been friends, even though I tried to kill you and stuff, and I still want to kill you. It's a very interesting, fucked up dynamic. So he's all around good addition to the cast, and I want to reread it and see if he would make S tier. Now, these two probably go in A tier because of this recent arc. The recent arc's been not as interesting, but it's definitely been good in terms of a character writing standpoint. They play off each other very well. Obviously, Halfdan is introduced way at the beginning, in like chapter 3, I think, when he comes to confront Thors for hiding his slave and everything. He's obviously a hard ass, and then he's a dick to Thorfinn and tells him like kiss his feet. And then when Thorfinn actually does it, he's like fucking surprised, and he gives him this fucking bullshit mission of selling narwhal things so he can fund Vinland and stuff. But obviously these two are probably going to end up living in Vinland eventually, because Thorfinn is like won him over, and we've seen the better part of Halfdan through this recent arc with Sigurd. They've sort of grown together, and Sigurd, obviously, it's going to be very interesting what he does now, because eventually he was introduced as like the pompous prick. It's sort of like a reverse gender Farnese in a sort of weird way, where he's like very orderly and like very in on this world and in on all the traditions and everything, and that sort of has been stripped away through an unrequited love triangle sort of thing. It's very interesting. That's actually a pretty good comparison. I don't think it's done as effectively as Farnese, because Farnese, we've seen more of Farnese after she gets over this, which is what Thorfinn is just, what Sigurd is just doing now. So basically Sigurd's let me fucking swallow. Sigurd is at the point about at the end of the Tower of Conviction arc where Farnese like strips away everything and decides to start anew. And obviously we've seen Farnese grow into a completely different, new, more interesting person now. Less hot though. We can all agree that old Farnese was way hotter than new Farnese. Jesus Christ, those fucking evil long hair things she had on. Jesus. Sigurd's hot too, you know what I mean? But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what he does next and if he can make it up to S tier. He looked really cool in that one thing. It's in the thumbnail of my my chapter reaction, the one shot of him with like his hair down and he's like walking away stoically after besting his father with his new fucking wife. It was a good time. The best Sigurd stuff is the most recent Sigurd stuff, and that's why. And the best Halfdan stuff is the most recent Halfdan stuff, and that's why they're both in fucking A tier now. If we'd done this like 6 months ago, they'd probably be in C tier, like warring, get them the fuck out of here. But they both definitely grown as characters as the series has progressed, and that's very nice. So that's definitely how I got it. These are the boys up here, and the girl. Vinland Saga does not have many women at all. Gudrid and Arnheid, it's sort of like, when are we getting Einar a love interest? I don't do Hilde like that. I don't think so. But a Hilde is there, so they do have two in their travelling party, and I'm sure they will find a love interest for Einar along the way. Has to get over Arnheid. How sad. We need love interest for this prick too. Give an old woman a leaf. What are we doing out here? Introduce some women out here. That being said, I think we're fucking done here. This is a fucking quality list. No one I dislike. Like in Berserk, I had the hot take that Griffith was a badly written character. And in Attack on Titan, obviously I put Armin in D tier and everyone got mad. And Judo. I wonder if there's going to be a Judo equivalent that everyone loves, but I put down really low. I don't know. I don't have very many hot takes when it comes to Vinland Saga, I don't think. I think I'm, besides not liking the anime, which might be the ultimate hot take. But in terms of manga, I don't know. I don't think people would probably put Snake or Thorgil or definitely Arnheid this high up. But I think people probably like it when you say a character that they thought was okay was actually really good, and it sort of emboldens them to think that Vinland Saga is even better than they imagined originally, rather than when you tell them the anime is bad and it's all they've seen, so they get very mad. With that being said, with our self-reflection, our reflection and conclusion out of the way, let's check how long have we been going. Fucking 35 minutes just about. With that being said, this is the list. The support links in the description below. Me Maffa continues on, and thanks.